Conversing is produced and distributed in partnership with Comet Magazine and Fuller Seminary. I'm Mark Labberton. Welcome to Conversing. In between my longer conversations with people who fascinate and inspire and challenge me, I share a short personal reflection, a focused episode that brings you the ideas, stories, questions, ponderings, and perspectives that animate Conversing and give voice to the purpose and heart of the show. Thanks for listening with me. Every Thanksgiving, I remember a particular date many years ago when I was a student doing my Master of Divinity degree at Fuller Seminary. That quarter had been very emotionally and psychologically difficult for me. My dad was in terrible, terrible health and declining. I was feeling really discouraged about myself and about where I was in my life. And I was just feeling, frankly, overwhelmed, and not just overwhelmed, but really undone. And it put me in a place of despair. And I had quite explicit plans and ideas of possibly ending my life as a result of it. None of this was known to the people who had quite wonderfully invited me to Thanksgiving at their house. When I said I would go, I wasn't sure that I would actually be alive when Thanksgiving came around, but I was. And they graciously came and picked me up since I didn't have a car and took me to their house, which was a small little house in Alhambra. When we arrived at their house, I remember walking in through the back door, and there was a back porch and various tables and other things that were set up there. And on these tables was a lot of food that had been prepared in advance for this wonderful feast that we were going to be having. And it just completely stopped me in my tracks. I couldn't believe that not only were we having this gathering, but that there had been such thoughtfulness and creativity and intentionality. It was there in the casseroles. It was there in the mashed potatoes. It was there in the gravy. It was there in the salads that had been made. It was all just laying out. And I thought, these are all acts of hope, which at that moment was not at all a marker of my life. And not only was it an act of hope, it was an act of community. These were foods made for us, not just for a given person or for them, but really for the collective us that were gathering at this house on Thanksgiving. And this only increased as we moved from the back porch into the kitchen and all of its wonderful smells, and then eventually into the dining room and the living room where the rest of the people were, and where all the table was beautifully decorated, all of which had been done again as further acts of hope. And it was in this process, green bean casserole, by mashed potatoes, by gravy, by salads, by smells of turkey, by candles on the table, by flowers arranged on the table, by people in their communication and dress for the day. It was all just this story of beauty. And it was a story of the beauty of friendship. It was a story of beauty as graduate students. This was hardly an elaborate financial extravaganza, but it was a magnificent extravaganza as far as I was concerned. And I gradually found myself thinking, these people are sharing not just the foods that collectively had been made, but they had shared hope, and they'd shared an anticipation of being with one another, which were things that were slipping through my fingers like sand. And somehow being in that context, sitting there with nobody being in a hurry, where we were just simply resident together around this table amidst these foods and decorations, and in the context of great friendship and great love. And in my friend's case, who had invited me, the hosts of the whole feast, there was no knowledge at that stage that I was as suicidal as I actually was. They were aware that I was in a hard place, but they were certainly not aware that it was as dark as it was. And yet, having been invited in a way, you could say, without that knowledge, it still mattered to me in every way that this was happening. And it changed gradually over the hours of that meal and all the chatter and laughter and conversations and delicious food, that the world was a different place than I had been isolating myself into thinking that it really was. And by the time they left me back at my apartment, I was aware that things had radically changed, and that in fact they had not only changed my mindset, but they had saved my life. And it's therefore a day that I can never pass through blithely. I'm always aware of the significance of that day for me and of the gift that they gave me of their own friendship. Thanksgiving Day, in all of these years in between, decades, I call that couple that were so generously hosting me that day to thank them again, to thank them for our friendship, to thank them for that particular gesture of friendship, to thank them for the decades of friendship that they've extended to me ever since. And it means that for me, Thanksgiving Day holds this deep and pensive awareness that Thanksgiving doesn't always come easy, that often it's a difficult act, that it involves things that are sometimes impossible for certain people to carry. And at the same time, it's possible for other people to carry them in our place, which is what these friends did for me that day. So I want to say to anyone who might be hearing this, as you approach Thanksgiving this year, I, of course, have no idea what you might be feeling. I certainly know what it's like to approach holidays, Thanksgiving in this case in particular, with despair. And if that's where you are, I just want to really encourage you to be sure that you seek professional help and to not wait. In my case, it happened that friends intervened unknowingly, but intervened all the same. But if that isn't what's happening and you don't have friends that might intervene, then all the more do you need to be sure that you're getting the kind of support professionally or otherwise that you might be seeking. Secondly, seek community in this time. I know that sometimes holidays are not easy for people to find the right place to be. Family might be that for some, many, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's not because of circumstances, but sometimes it's not because of the nature of the relationship. So let me just encourage you to be with people today on Thanksgiving, that is, to think about and remember them and be with them and show the fellowship and food, if possible, with them in order to enter into the spirit of this great Thanksgiving. And to do so, not because the world is a perfect place. Nothing about my circumstances that year had changed because of going to Thanksgiving dinner. And yet, in a way, my mindset about all those things changed dramatically. So I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And whether you're in darkness or in light, whether your heart feels full of gratitude or whether it may not, I just hope that you'll be aware that God is with you, that you are not alone, that there are people that want to support you and help you, and that there are people that know you who would welcome you into a circle of celebration and gratitude today. And I hope you take advantage of it. Blessed Thanksgiving. Conversing is produced and distributed in partnership with Comment Magazine and Fuller Seminary. Peter Labberton is our engineer and editor. Evan Rosa is our producer. For more information about Comment Magazine, visit comment.org, where you can subscribe, read the current magazine issue, and browse their archive. Fuller Seminary is an evangelical, multi-denominational graduate institution committed to providing indispensable formational education for diverse Christian leaders everywhere. For information, visit fuller.edu. I'm your host, Mark Labberton. Thanks for listening with me.